The second thing for sure, physical AI and robotics. So actually like, bringing things on the ground, like making things happen. I'm always more on the side of like looking at deployment, like real machines doing real work in factory, in farms, in warehouses. We will see that over the next 12 months, and that will be really, really cool. Okay, I think it goes back to like this like gravity center of universe question that we're seeing around AI, and like the truly insane bet that we're putting our like whole economy under, and whole like tech investment, right? So the natural question comes: is it a bubble or not? And given it is a bubble, if it bursts, we're in true problem. So I don't think that this will necessarily come in 26, right? But I think like if it happens, it will probably come to like a real reckoning in 27. You have one other like overarching problem is that climate tech as a specific holding term still falls under tech, right? And like if the whole like tech narrative gets poisoned, the climate tech will get poisoned too. If we use another decade or two in robotics, that would be sad. Losing a decade or two in specific climate solutions, that would be fatal.
Hi, welcome to Off the Record, the Climate Tech Edition. This is the podcast all about what's hot in climate tech and everything playing out behind the scenes. Now, today our episode is all about our predictions for what is going to play out in climate tech in 2026, including some big surprises we might see specifically in physical AI. Now, 2025 was a total roller coaster in climate tech, and the way things are shaping up, it looks like 2026 will be absolutely no different. We never imagined by the end of 2025 we'd be winning in terms of the climate front, and that now we have a whole new batch of surprises to look forward to for this coming year. In this episode, we break things down into 4 different categories: what's expected, big concerns, big surprises, and finally, what we hope will actually play out throughout the course of this year. Reindustrialization is definitely happening. AI and power production continue to take center stage. And finally, you're not going to want to miss what my co-host, Skander Garroum, has to say about what might be happening with the AI bubble and with robotics. Big things are coming, and maybe a lot sooner than you realize. So today we got 5 topics for you. Number 1, where does the AI power production data center story go next? 2, reindustrialization gets real. 3, the physical AI and robotics rollout. And 4, the AI bubble is real and it will burst in exactly, well, you'll have to listen to find out. And finally, 5, we're going to go over all the big stories that we plan to cover here on this podcast throughout 2026. And without further ado, let's jump right in. Hi, I'm Jordy Gold.
And I'm Skander Garroum.
And welcome to Off the Record, the Climate Tech Edition. Now, Skander, recently, we just recorded a new episode all about the big stories that played out in 2025. And for those who haven't seen the episode, maybe for some of those who don't remember how things were going at the beginning of 2025, that year started out with all kinds of big storm clouds all around, where things were not looking good for climate tech. People were very concerned. And then as it played out month by month, somehow we wound up in a totally different place by the end of the year, to the point where you literally said, we being the people who care about climate, we being the people who care about climate tech, you actually said that we're winning at this point. Too slowly, but we're winning, which at the beginning of 2025, I don't think any of us saw it going in that direction. Obviously, people are interested, please go back, listen to that episode. It really helps to set the table for this episode and for this year to come. So turning the page to 2026, we got a whole new year. There is a ton going on. And Skander, you've got a whole new set of predictions of what you think is going to play out this year. And so just to get things started out here, let's set the mood for the year. What are you feeling right now for climate tech going into 2026?
Good question. Right. So one thing is for sure, this will be a crazy year, and very clearly also a year of extremes. 25 was already a year of extremes, and this general trend will just continue. So yeah, looking forward to how it will all play out.
Okay. Well, I guess more of the same then, something like that. And in that case, I really do want to hear what are the nitty-gritty of like what we think is actually gonna happen. So for folks listening today, just so you understand, for this particular episode, we're gonna break things down into four different categories about what we think is gonna happen in 2026. First category, the stuff, Skander, that you're pretty sure is gonna actually happen. Category number two, the stuff you're most concerned might actually happen. Category number three is your craziest predictions and maybe some surprises, things that might be a little bit more unexpected. And then finally, category number four, the things that you hope will actually happen in 2026. So, without further ado, let's jump into to our first category. Those things that you think you're pretty sure are actually going to happen. Could you tell us what are some of those things?
Alrighty, so I think if we take one surefire bet of what will happen in 26 is that data center and the whole like data center ecosystems and everything connected to it will continue to be like the center of our little like tech universe, and that's also the center of our little climate universe. I think the conversation will shift, however, right? Like from the pure let's build data centers as quickly as possible to connect them to the grid, so this pure demand play, to more of a okay, like what is actually happening with interconnection speed? What is happening with resilience? And like what is happening with the whole like bring your own power strategies?
Okay. Okay. So if we see these kinds of shifts, what are the new kinds of problems you think we might expect to see?
Alrighty, so firm clean power, clean, in brackets, was like kind of like the big topic of last year. What got the bit was fast power forever, right? Like like gas turbines most of the time, and now we will see all these other bets that we placed in 24 and 25 actually slowly to start playing out, right? Geothermal, nuclear, solar plus batteries, and the question is like, what comes next?
Gotcha. Now, we know that there's a good amount of demand for clean energy. We also know AI and data centers use crazy, crazy amounts of power. Do you have any sense this year of the amount of clean power we might produce? With that in mind, if you look across all of AI, do you have any sense of how much of AI might get powered by clean energy?
Okay, super super hard to say. I think in general we can look at the numbers from now, right? Like last year 25 data centers in the US got around 40% of their electricity from natural gas, right? Like, so the quickest way to power was natural gas, 40% was natural gas, and then the rest came from the grid. And then, like, overarchingly, 24% wind and solar, 20% nuclear, 15% from coal. That is tracking ish what we see globally, right? Globally, around like 50 to 60% of data center electricity came from fossil fuels, right? And the rest was a mix out of renewables and nuclear essentially. And I think if we look forward to 26 and what will happen, I think we're gonna see like two big trends of like where we're gonna see like renewables actually step up. On the one side, it's like these leading hyperscalers, right? The Metas and Amazon and Googles of the world. There's a clear pipeline to reach clean electricity, fairly fast. So there we could see 80 to 100% even of clean electricity in a long-term perspective, not necessarily next year, right? Like,
Right.
and not necessarily this year, right? And like for most of the part, like for this and next year, we can take the grid mix that we have and then add an unhealthy dose of gas turbines to it. So like in advanced markets, that might be around like 50% low carbon electricity, and then add the minus 10% gas turbines for like specific data center users to it.
Gotcha, gotcha. Those are impressive numbers. I'm not sure it's enough from a climate perspective, but those are good numbers and a lot of new clean energy coming online. What are the other challenges we need to be looking at?
I think the like general theme will still be data center ecosystem, because like a larger part of this ecosystem is actually the thing that brings us electricity, right? Like the grid. And in a lot of ways, the grid and like especially the bottlenecks of our grid are becoming a real market, right? Like permitting interconnection queues mostly on the regulatory side, but like we have all kinds of bottlenecks, from line maintenance to OEM that will just be accelerated last year and will need to be solved this year.
Gotcha. So that's a lot to handle. Now, are you seeing these as more sort of minor logistics that people can sort of stick handle through, or are you thinking these are going to be huge challenges that could really block what's going on?
So the truth right now is that we plainly didn't invest in our infrastructure, and or we're seeing more demand through electrification than we anticipated it, and now we're paying the price for it, right? So in like the scale of minor logistics issues to huge challenges, it would be plainly more in the direction of a huge challenge. It will not. I don't think that it will like necessarily throw off the development of the general space. We need to get good at fixing all these problems as fast as possible.
Gotcha, gotcha. When you talk about we didn't invest enough before and that we're paying for it now, it makes me think of when I was back in grad school. That number one lesson they taught us on the first day and just kept hammering into our heads: an ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure. And I guess we didn't really make that investment in that ounce of prevention before, and we're paying that pound of cure now, I guess. So to wrap up category number one, the stuff that you're more sure is going to happen, we got one more thing. This one I think is possibly a little bit potentially more positive, and I think people are going to want to know about it. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I think the whole like reindustrialization thing is for sure happening. There's a lot of money being spent not only on data centers but also on the wider physical space. How can we produce and how can we build more? We outsourced and offshored a lot over the 80s and 90s, and now we're slowly going back to the point of like, okay, there's a new stack, an electric stack. How can we take all the supply chains that we need, from batteries to power electronics, but obviously also, all the parts that we need in between, transformers, the whole robotics, everything that actually builds our factories. And now we're already entering the phase of like, physical AI and robotics. How can we make all of this happen and actually like bring to the ground? And we saw a lot of investment in 24. We saw a lot of like, the early deployment, but we will see so much more now, 26.
Gotcha, gotcha. So there's been a ton of hype around robots, around physical AI. There's a lot of people out there who think that we're really far out from this actually making a real impact, from being real, from actually happening. You think that this is going to happen a lot sooner than people realize and have a much bigger impact in the near future than a lot of people are thinking right now.
Yeah, like robotics was one of the topics on my mind for the last few months. To be fair, I started out from this like fairly skeptical perspective myself, but after chatting with friends in the space and drifties who are working on things, and like I think like a dozen robotics founders, we are seeing tremendous progress. We are seeing outside of the lab, although there's some cool progress and some cool videos and case studies coming out of labs, we're actually seeing first deployment, like first real movement where we take, automatic use cases, robotics, and apply them to all the problems that we're seeing, across climate. I think that there were a lot of unlocks from a lot of different sectors, right? Again, looking at like the electric stack around batteries, also like introduction of AI and data centers, how cheap and efficient GPUs on that scale became. And obviously reasoning models. Now we have all these like moving parts that, thanks to learning curves and thanks to our progress everywhere, we are actually bringing together and can throw like robotics at actual use cases.
Okay, okay. This sounds like a real big deal and could totally shake things up in a big way. Now, we've been chatting about this, and if things keep developing like you think they will, we'll probably do a whole episode on this and really dive in and hear what people are saying is about to start to happen in real life. Now, on to category number two. We're going to start talking about the things you're most concerned about. And for this first item, what we're going to talk about, this one, I think it could have fit into that first category of just the stuff that you think is going to happen. But we decided to stick it into this one of more just what you're concerned is going to happen or could happen. Tell me, what are you so worried about right now?
Okay, I think it goes back to like this like gravity center of universe question that we're seeing around AI, and like the truly insane bet that we're putting our like whole economy under, and whole like tech investment, right? So the natural question comes: is it a bubble or not? And given it is a bubble, if it bursts, we're in true problem, because then if it bursts, we're probably entering a true recession, and that will be bad for any climate solution. Right? So I don't think that this will necessarily come in 26, right? But I think like if it happens, it will probably come to like a real reckoning in 27, because this is the point, like from our like little climate perspective here, where the data centers are being built out. billions have been spent, but the compute is just isn't delivering what people expect. And by that, I plainly mean like the revenue is not there for the AI companies. Killer apps have not materialized yet, and then you get a very, very, very negative flywheel.
Okay, so this is a very big deal. I know so many people are focused on AI, focused on this bubble. Are we in a bubble? Are we not in a bubble? If we're in a bubble, when is it going to burst? So you're starting to give us here potentially a real timeline. You think it's about a year off, which isn't that much time. That's kind of concerning. One of the things I know we've talked about is the level of compute might not be there for it at that point when the data centers are built out. I think most people understand what we're talking about when we say data centers will be built out. Perhaps for those who don't know everything about this, maybe you could explain what does it mean if the level of compute is not up for the level of data center development at that point?
Okay, so it's more like a question between like infrastructure investment, capabilities, and the use of it, right? So we are putting a lot of money into this new infrastructure around data centers, and do the capabilities actually justify the infrastructure investment? And does the use of the capabilities justify the whole investment, right? So this is like everyone is kind of like building based on extrapolation, right? Like assuming that AI keeps improving at the rate that it's been improving, assuming that AI actually has the uptake and the usage that we see it. But like, what happens if it doesn't, right? Like on a technical side, what if we actually hit walls? What if, GPT-6 or 7 or whatever comes next is only like marginal better than what we have now? And even for the stuff that we have now, and this is all very impressive for sure, what if enterprises realize that paying for all these tools doesn't actually improve their bottom line enough? And then, then you go back to like this whole like infrastructure versus capabilities logic, and you have like hundreds of billions of dollars in data centers that are like overbuilt for the actual demand that we are seeing from the market. And then we will see the first write downs, and then we see stock prices fall, and then the whole general concentration of AI will create a domino effect across the whole economy.
Gotcha. That does not sound good at all. So when this bubble bursts, let's say it's in a year from now when you think it'll happen, what are the top two, top three impacts you think we might see?
So I think a lot about like first of a kind, right? Like I think a lot about like the really hard bets that we're doing in climate right now, where we're asking teams and employees and investors and also off takers, right? Like also industries to take a bet on a fairly unproven technology. In a recession, risk appetites change. And that means that first of a kind projects will have a huge problem to become fundable. And as long as we don't have first of a kind projects, we will not make progress. So that's for sure number one. And then, connected to risk preference change is like a flight to like perceived safety. Capital moves around proven technologies in general, but especially if times are really unsure or the recession happens. Um, the problem is that we need like all these breakthrough technology around climate solutions, and just taking our existing tech and deploying them is plainly not enough. So that moves from like this very early stage, this mid stage, and then you have one other like overarching problem is that climate as a general holding term, climate tech as a specific holding term, still falls under tech, right? And like if the whole like tech narrative gets poisoned, the climate tech will get poisoned too. And like this perception, unfortunately, matters a lot, right? Because perception damage takes in the end years to repair, and if it then just switches over from general tech to climate tech, we have a problem. And then, if we use another decade or two in robotics, that would be sad. Losing a decade or two in specific climate solutions, that would be, fatal.
Well, that's rather dark and kind of concerning. And yeah, that narrative one is absolutely critical. So moving on here to some degree beyond the bubble, there's a lot going on in the world. There's a ton happening with geopolitics right now. And we're not going to get into all of it here. That's just not the point of the show. There's too much to possibly discuss. That being said, I don't think we can ignore it entirely. It is creating a tremendous amount of uncertainty. It's creating a lot of risk. Do you have any idea or any thoughts on what kind of impacts geopolitics are having on climate tech right now?
It's the unpredictability that is a problem for all of us every day we wake up. So we got a lot of irrational actors right now. The U.S. and its president foremost, where we just don't know what will happen this morning, or what happened last night, and what will happen tomorrow. And the more things are unpredictable, the harder they are to plan, the harder it is to like keep to all these timelines that we have. The other thing is that we have this question around decoupling, right? We mentioned a little bit before the whole like reindustrialization. Decoupling is the concept of like we have our supply chains in every other part of the world except where we are. Can we decouple from our supply chains, let's say in China, and then bring them over to Europe or to the US? It's not moving in any direction, right? And that again is another like factor that just creates unpredictability, right? Like we saw it in rare earths in 25, where like from one day to the next, in principle, we had okay, like we need to decouple our rare earth supply chains. Let's put money into it. Let's make it happen. Let's create companies around that. And then a few weeks later, it was old news and nothing happened. And then something else happened, right? And then you have the whole like, unpredictability flywheel that just like diffuses energy in all direction. So nothing get built in the end. And that is the biggest problem because we need deployment. And then, last but not least, forks, first of a kinds, are risky, and they are even risky in a world where there's a high level of unpredictability because forks are also dependent on state goodwill, subsidies, and regulation.
Yeah, if you're doing first of a kind, you're already trying to scale up unproven technology. There's so much risk there, as you just said. Those people who are trying to get behind those kinds of projects, they don't need extra risk. And I got to say, in times like these, I'm not quite sure who's going to be brave enough to try and pull that off. Now, moving into our next category, we're going to talk about your craziest predictions and your biggest surprises you think might play out this year. What do you got for us?
Okay, so my craziest predictions are we will actually have some kind of tech breakthrough, some kind of like best case scenario, fusion level bet, but on a material level, some kind of new battery technology that will come through, some kind of new semiconductors, and obviously last but not least, but computing, especially quantum computing, might not be that far away. If any of those changes and we actually make a true material level breakthrough on any of those, that will again change the game.
Okay. Care to take any bets on what we might actually see break through?
I think in the end it's a magic moment, right? Like it's like if something has a breakthrough, it will be a true black swan event. We will not know what hit us, how quickly, and then the cards are reshuffled. Again, I would keep my eyes on batteries, semiconductors, and computing, but I don't necessarily would say, okay, like there's a surefire bet it will happen in any of them.
Okay. I get it. It's tough to know when lightning is gonna strike. So that takes us to our final category for the show today. For 2026, what are the things that you hope you see play out over the next 12 months?
That I wake up every morning and everything feels safe and stable, and we're making progress on everything. But given that it's not that time, and that we are currently living through climate downtimes, I think downtimes are the right time to go all in. Right, more people tackling the hard problems in climate is something that I wish to see, and I think there's a good chance that people stand up now and say, okay, like nobody else is tackling it. Let's try to solve it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I really hope there'll be some great people who are brave enough, who grab that baton and really run with it and try and drive some of these climate solutions over the coming year, in spite of all the chaos. Hopefully they can overcome. So that wraps up our four categories. Now, just looking ahead, we got a whole year in front of us. There's a lot to talk about. Any top line thoughts on the big topics that you think we might cover and maybe even do whole episodes about in the coming year?
I mean, like obviously, first thing that we cannot ignore is the whole AI power production data center story. I mean, that is far from over, and as you know, like the whole conversation is evolving super fast. Few months ago it was all about like demand projections, and now it's all about like who actually captures which value, and then it goes into like who's solving which bottleneck questions, no matter if it's like on the grid side or the deployment side. So that will be super fascinating to look into. The second thing for sure, physical AI and robotics. So actually, like, bringing things on the ground, like making things happen. I'm always more on the side of like looking at deployment than instead of looking at all the like potential like sci-fi on paper use cases. Real machines doing real work in factory, in farms, in warehouses. We will see that over the next 12 months, and that would be really, really cool. And like the last thing is like, what can we build? What can we build? Industrialization is the general buzzword here, but like, what does it actually take, right? Northvolt has shown us that it's insanely hard to build a gigafactory in Europe, even if you have billions of dollars and years of effort and a great team. But like, what is the playbook then, right? Like, what are the bottlenecks? And is it capital? Is it talent? Is it permitting? Is it supply chains? We will see. So there will be also like a lot of interesting.
Gotcha, gotcha. I think you've been talking to various founders as well who are actually trying to do some of this stuff.
Yes, and I'm 100% sure that like a lot of those conversations will still happen this year.
Fantastic. Well, I'm super curious. I want to hear about all of those things you just talked about. Particularly, what do those people on the inside, what do those founders have to say that they're actually doing, what they're actually planning on rolling out in the real world? There's so many cool things that are going to happen, tons of critical developments in the pipeline. I can't wait to have all these conversations with you and see how the year plays out.
I'm very much looking forward to all of it. I think it will be like despite what we said in the beginning of like year of extremes and the uncertainty, I think there will be a lot of good news a lot of like also like great stuff to just dive in and take apart and try to understand.
Definitely. And when we wrapped up 2024 and we were queuing things up for 2025, the year did not quite turn out how we expected. So who knows where we could possibly be in 12 months from now? But I am certainly curious to find out. Well, as always, if you liked what you heard, please do share this episode with all of your friends. Sign up for the Climate Drift newsletter. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the show, comment, tell us everything. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you'd like to see, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, Skander, we will be back again soon with another episode.
Hit like and subscribe.
Sounds good. Bye, everyone.